What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Summit Power Rankings. I'm your host, X-Ray, and joining me this week, we got the man, the myth, the legend, Asian Jason, the guy who streams all the games.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I,
content king.
I just like yeah. And
Yeah,
then
that's facts.
we got his captain, Mr. Gar. What's up,
He's
man?
my captain.
Hello.
The fuck?
It's gonna be another run back where someone else takes responsibility of the team like all the other times.
What does that mean? So wait, are you saying your team, while it is winning right now, are you saying they're gonna run it down later?
No, 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 no. I'm just saying it seems to be like a Summit classic where, with DPT everyone thought it was Rob's team, and then with
Mm.
GKC it was never Saw's team.
Okay.
So
So now
True.
it's Jason's team.
this season is gonna be freaking Asian Jason's team at this rate.
That's true.
Okay,
The
so
unsung hero, though. Respect.
yeah, so far it is Jason's team. All right, that's just because he's had the best performances. But Gar, you have had a couple good performances,
Garson beating the
and
shit out of
and
these
I
top
think we're
laners, I
gonna
will
talk
say.
about them because we're gonna start off with the top lane power rankings. I'll start
Mm.
off my elite tier. Um, I do it by tiers. I don't do it by the numbers. Elite tier: Owen, Gar, number two, and that's all the way through. And then DV, and I just think these players right now are just in a league of their own and playing well, and their teams are winning because of their effort. I mean, Owen alone, I wouldn't say won his series this week, but just looked dominant all the way through. Gar, honestly, I didn't know how you were gonna do in the top lane, but your week 1 and 2 performances were pretty good. Your volley game though, that was a little iffy though.
That we could save that for another time.
Another time, yeah. But honestly, I'm very impressed with how you've been playing Gar, and then David. I mean, it's David. He's been playing really well. You know, he hasn't been playing a whole lot of tanks. I'm sorry, excuse me. He did play Ornn this week, which I don't know why they would let him get Ornn. Um, and yeah, I think just these guys are playing really well. And then my top tier, I have One Cake, myself, and Banana. I just think these players are strong enough, in my opinion, to be most of the laners below them and able to compete with each other in their own tier. But will probably lose to anyone above them. My mid tier is Patstick, ISO, Bronze, Beartail, and VLN. And some of these players had really good performances this week. Patstick figured out the Summit meta is just to pick Ornn every game. And then, ISO playing a signature pick. I don't know why he has not got a Zac ban yet. He's played it all, like 6 of his games, I think. So I don't know why he hasn't got banned yet. Cena, very impressed with his performance this week. Like his Gwen, he had a really good Gwen game, and then I don't know why they would let him get his Camille as well. So I don't really know what that was about. And then Beartail, I didn't want to put Beartail on the low tier just because I didn't think that's where he deserved to be this week, just because he is playing against David. And then VLN, I thought had a really good series this week. The Darius was kind of questionable, but then he pulled out the Orin and looked a lot better, I would say. And then my low tier, John Dye, Asuna, Doki, and you guys are just not playing well, and something has to change in order for you guys to go up. That's just pretty much all I'm gonna say about those three. So yeah, that's my top lane list. I'm gonna send it over to Jason.
Yeah, pretty similar list, I'd say. So I don't want to beat the horse too much. I think Owen, clear cut number one. I know start of the season, some people were saying how One Cake might dethrone him or something, but I think there's like little to no chance that's ever gonna
Yeah,
happen
at,
this
at this
season.
point, it's not
I
looking
think,
good.
yeah, like, if there's a couple players that will probably never move their position, I think Owen's at the top of that list. So I think we
Oh,
don't want to talk about it too
absolutely.
much.
Yeah,
But I think the next three are very interesting. Gar, DV, 1K. It's hard because DV is the one series I didn't get to watch this week. But looking at performance, he looks like he did solid. But Gar just seems to be gapping these top laners more than the other two are. Maybe it might be due to how easy they have been so far. I think Doki and I forgot who week one was, John Dye maybe. But
Yeah, that was Hyundai.
I think
Gar just seems to be.
the other thing is like the difference between groups though is like Owen and like David has to go against a lot harder opponents.
Yeah, it
Like
might be a
Owen.
bit harder.
And I think Gar is like
Slightly.
I think the highest rank pool A top laner. I think yeah, besides Wancake. Um, that he's
Yeah, I mean the top pool overall is just pretty weak though, so it's kind
Yeah.
of hard to really say.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
I think the difference Gar's making in these games is more impactful than the other two, I would say right now. But the other two are definitely the next three, Gar through One Cake are I'd say solidly in their own tier at this time. And then the next tier, if we're talking tiers, I didn't explicitly write it down tiers in my notes or anything, but it's
Nope.
probably like Pat's Thick all the way down to maybe Asuna. I think they all had solid performances. Pat's Thick lost the matchup against One Cake, but I think he still did okay in it. Mr. Lizards, I think that's Bronzina, correct?
Yep.
He oh, yeah, my notes is Liz. He kind of gapped the shit out of the top laner this week. I think it was Banana.
Yeah.
He had a really strong performance, so he shot up a lot for me. X-Ray sub low key gapped up John Dye. I honestly don't think X-Ray would have done as well as he did, so it's kind of hard to really judge him.
Damn.
X-Ray based off him
Damn.
playing this week. I don't know where you got that replacement was, but he was putting the works on him. But I think
You know what's
X-Ray in the
crazy?
middle of the pack right now is solid.
You know what's
So,
crazy is he's silver, by the way.
yeah,
No shot.
I don't know. Top lane's a mess this season.
I think he's silver.
Top lane's a mess.
When I asked. So
Okay, but continue on.
Yeah.
I think I'm on Banana. Pretty meteor performance 2 weeks in a row. Nothing spectacular. Didn't completely in either of them, I think, but I think he lost both weeks. Maybe I think week one maybe been a little toss up, but probably lower middle. Awesome, decent performance. The Kennen had some good ults. There was one ult where I saw him like he ulted, but then he ran the other way, and I thought that was really weird. But I think decent performance from him, especially going into Owen. John Dye, I think really weak performance so far, especially considering his rank. I think he's a filled top. So we're looking to see how he can shape up there. But I think pretty weak so far. Berto, didn't get to watch his game again this week, but he seems to be doing okay in the top lane. Nothing crazy. Kind of what you would want out of a low elo fill top laner. So solid performance. And then I think the bottom three are kind of like, in my eyes, kind of stuck at the bottom right now. Just minimal impact, minimal performances. Honestly, they're probably fairly interchangeable. It's kind of hard to really rack and stack at these
really
ranks.
Isaac at interchangeable? I thought
Because he
his
played against
Zach-
VLN this week, right? I mean, I don't know. He's playing Zach, but
Uh,
it didn't look that impactful from what I've seen. So
Okay.
I would put these bottom three here.
Okay. There you go.
He looked decent, but I don't know.
Yeah. So I also have the same sentiment with everyone about like Owen being undisputed number one. I personally think, even though I put myself two, I feel like I will fall down as the week progresses because, as you guys said, like our pool A does not have that many strong top laners. Hypothetically, it's mostly just me and Wancake. And because of that, it's really hard to judge how exactly our top lane seeding will go. Once it gets to the Summit Admin versus GFC match, I think we can finally like start settling down on like who the better top laner is in Pool A, but it's really difficult until we get to that point. But I would argue that 1 through 4 right now are currently the elite tier. I don't really think there's too much competition between these four compared to everyone else below them.
Mhm.
Thanks to like all the performances being shown so far, it is a little harder to judge David from last series just because the VOD for that game was banished. But from the live gameplay that I remember, I think David did well to help support his team, but I don't think he has the carry potential that you would expect from a high ranking player. Moving down to, I'd say, like the strong tier, I do have X-Ray still up there just because I think he does a really good job with playing around the tanks he's comfortable with, aka Ornn. But since he was not here during this week, it's a little hard to judge him with his power relative to other people. I do think Ganunu actually smurfed the hell out of his performance, considering he did join in as a silver player. I think Sprinkler has really interesting connections in the back line. So hopefully we
So
see something else there.
it actually wasn't Sprinkler. It was Enderfridge, his friend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Well, sorry, Ender, for taking your credit there. But I do want to say the move up for Pat Stick was definitely a very noticeable change. Considering he did have to play against, I believe, hold on,
I think it,
rookies and yeah, that was against Wancake. He held his own in most of the games. Like I remember, even though the Wancake was like up 5-1 of the Gwen at some point, he still was doing really well with his Ornn. Obviously, there's a lot of micro mistakes that he made that ended up leading to his deaths. But I think considering he's in a really bad matchup to begin with, he's done really well for himself. Uh, I did put Banana at 7th, but I may move him down as the week progresses because for what he was placed at, which I believe his point value was, if I
uh
look at my, yeah, he was put as 12 points right now. Uh, it's looking a little grim compared to the rest of the players that are placed around or lower than him. Uh, I do think it's a little restricting being a semi two trick in a draft league, but uh, if we get to see him more comfortable in other champions, or if he's able to actually smurf on the 2 picks that he has, I think he'd be received in a more favorable light. But as it stands from right now, it just hasn't been a good look so far. Asuna, John Dye, Isodidax, I think they're performing around the level that we expect from them, if not a little bit better. Uh, Whether or not it's been mentioned with the previous power ranking, John Dye is a mid lane main that got put top lane, and so he's doing his best to adjust there. We did see him opt towards more AP bruiser picks with the Galio and the Rumble, things that just have high impact in team fights. And while he did not have the carry performance you would expect from like a Rumble, uh, he was able to apply enough pressure for his team to at least win some of those fights thanks to his ultimates. But just overall, it still seems like he's struggling just a little bit to try to find his placing with his team. And I'm hopeful that he'll be able to show himself a little bit more, maybe just jump up to the 7th place with the next game. But that's it for me. And then I have the bottom 4, which I can't really rate too badly because even though they're technically double-digit ratings, I don't think they're doing bad by themselves. So I think Bronzina has shown that he has the potential to win his lane. It's really difficult in the pool he's been in with how high-level players have been getting top lane. I think Baratel also just had it really rough because he's playing against, a very high ranked top laner and he's stuck on Trundle duty. So, there's so much he can do from it that end. I do think that VLN and Doki improved a lot, especially considering VLN had the unfortunate rising of playing against Owen game 1. But now, thanks to week 2, playing around someone around his elo, it's showed that like he has fighting power and is able to fight back towards some closer ranked people. And I know it hasn't really been said anywhere, but Doki, during his match against us, he was the one who suggested the lane swap, and it really seems like he has the potential of making these creative plays. It's difficult for an auto-filled player to
right.
actually play around how it is to be a top laner compared to a jungler. And so I think once he starts getting comfortable towards top lane, he might be able to jump up past 14.
All right. Yeah.
Sorry, that was a lot of yapping. That's my bad.
No, you're good. I was your comment on Doki just kind of made me laugh. That's all. So, but let's move on to our jungle tier. Starting off, Sprinkler. Hit the listen. Not. I'm not biased, but I am biased at the same time. But Sprinkler had the best game-changing play I think I've ever seen in Summit so far. And
That was crazy.
So that's why I have him first, because I honestly think he had a really good series this last week. And that the Lee Sin, I'm surprised it wasn't banned game 3. But maybe McMills thought something else. And then Hootie, I just think he had a really good performance as well, helping out Owen and being kind of like a secondary carry. It's more of like a respectful pick. I know he lost this week, but I decided to kind of give him the respect that he deserves because I do think he'll jump up to that second spot or maybe even back at number one depending on how he plays this next week. Yeah, that's my elite tier. My top tier, I have Vigor, Soulpan, Adolfo, SK Evabs, Firestorm, and Ryan. Um, no matter if they lose or not, all these players had strong performances in their series and deserve to be here. I think Vigor, I think impressed me the most this last week. He actually stepped up and was kind of more of a leading member of his team this week with Array. Adolfo, solid performance. Soulpan, okay performance. SK Evaps, once again, he picks that Gwen in game 3 and then just runs it down and is able to just help his team carry. Firestorm, and it sucks that Firestorm, I think he's a good player, but the team around him is struggling to find, momentum. So I put him here. Otherwise, I'd probably put him lower, but I think by his plays and how he's performing in these games, I think he's doing a solid job. And then Ryan, I honestly thought his Skarner games were pretty solid. That's about it. Middle tier, I have Cookies, Slop, and KitKat / PPP, or whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna be honest, I really just wanted to rank all the people who swapped lanes last because you keep tricking me and I have to change it on the spreadsheet and I just don't want to do it anymore. So, so otherwise, Cookies lost. Slop only played one game, and KitKat PPP. I don't know. They keep changing roles, so they're here. That's literally what I have in my notes. And then my low tier, Gator, and won't back down. Gator. I think he's having flashbacks of Krusty Trap because that's what they're looking like right now. And then won't back down. Just constantly was out of position, getting caught before team fights, and yeah, that's my list. I'm gonna send it to Gar this time.
Oh, that's gonna be spicy. All right. Like you said, Sprinkler had a huge performance upbringing this game compared to the last series. I mean, we could clip it later, but that last Lee Sin where he got behind the Aurelion Soul completely changed the game.
Don't worry, I will talk about it tomorrow on the climb, so don't worry. Don't worry about it.
That shit was crazy.
I can record it for you later. But anyways, I will say there were some instances where his Lee Sin could have been a little cleaner. I'm sure Jason may or may not remember where they try to dive on top of the Thresh and he did not land the Warhop to kick. But that's besides the point.
Just a couple.
Don't worry.
I think he might be still trying to warm up to Lee Sin, but overall, I think the amount of game impact he's had in the last series has really brought him up to the first spot. I still think Hootie is also a really solid jungler. He's still been able to show that he's been the main playmaker for his team, but I think Sprinkler's impact was just a little more this time around. I did put Touch Vigor here, or TV for, easier pronunciation, in third place, just because I think the way he played his jungle this series compared to his last was completely evolved. His Jin Zhao was extremely crazy. He was able to make a lot of plays around the map, and it just really carried over for the rest of his team to get the victories that he needed. So I'm putting him third there. And Morn, as all of you have said, has been really solid. It was just a little unfortunate that they didn't end up losing. So I did drop his value down just a little bit, but I still think all four of those players are still in the elite tier. Soulpan, now that he's returned to the tournament as his first series, I think, because last series was Bouncy Night, right? Yeah. Yep. I think he did really good. Obviously, has been instances where Soulpan could have played out the macro just a little bit better. There was one dragon fight I'm thinking about where there's some miscommunication and positioning that led up to a not as great outcome as they would have liked, but I think overall he's been able to lead his team. Same with SK Evaps. He wasn't exactly the carry for his team either, but he was able to help support his team to getting the leads that they want. And then we also have Adolf Kittler or Adolfo Kittler.
Doffel.
Uh,
Don't worry, I made that same mistake too.
Woof Woof. He's Woof Woof.
He's
Anyways,
Woof Woof.
yeah, Woof Woof has been doing really good. He's actually surprised me a lot considering I'm on his team now. He's definitely shown that he's capable of leading his lanes around and getting them the carry potential that they want. I'm sure Jason has noticed it whenever he gets ganks that Kittler's kind of freaking going crazy with it and, making sure that these plays actually work out. But outside there's Firestorm Boxer, which is a little unfortunate with how the games have been going for his team, but I do think that he's been a really solid jungler, and if they're able to reorganize how they want to play around their team, he'll be able to shine a lot more. Then we go to the somewhat lower tier. We have OT Gator, we have PPP, and Ryan. I think all three of them in their own rights have the potential to get leads around their team or across the map. It's just that they don't have the exact same potential as the people above them. OT Gator did get hurt pretty badly by the Game 3 disconnect, which I think his Garner was doing really good. Same with the Elise. His Elise is freaking crazy. But it was just really unfortunate that, even though he got these advantages, he wasn't able to close out the games the way he wanted to.
Hmm.
And going down to, the bottom three, Gourmet Cookies, it was a little rough to watch the jungle this time around, considering he was playing against a much more seasoned jungler named TV. So just seeing how different a actual jungler is compared to an autofill jungler is pretty jarring. I can't really comment too much about Slot Maestro because unfortunately I don't really remember that game. So
Yeah, he only
sorry,
played
buddy.
one game.
That might be
He
it.
was subbed in for one game, and I think that was
Gotcha.
the one series that wasn't streamed.
Yeah,
If I'm
it was Size game.
Okay. So that's why I don't really remember it. But I won't back down for obvious reasons. He's last, but
Rip.
don't consider that as a bad thing, though. Compared to the first series you had against us, I think he improved a lot more. It's just there's a bunch of micro decisions that can potentially be fixed with more practice with your team. But until then, you will be sitting at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, and I remember just one specific play, he just literally just walked into the bush and he knew, Sprinklers Tinklers were in there, and he just walks up and gets Maokai W'd and just gets blown up by the rest of the Sprinklers Tinklers team. So unfortunate,
Yeah.
but yeah, Jason, hit me with it.
Okay, I like Jungle's probably my favorite one to talk about here. Not only just coming off from playing Jungle the last 2 seasons, but I think Jungle is probably top to bottom the most stacked overall. I would say ADC I think is close. But I think looking at the elite tier, Sprinkler through TV, I think Soapin can certainly find his way back up there. But I think at this current time, that's the solid top four. Out of all the junglers, I think Sprinkler's impressed me the most. That might be partly due to him being Phil as well, but his performance probably impressed me the most out of the top four. Just looked like the most impactful, did the most. Some obviously micro things on the Lee Sin might be a little sus, but overall it's looked pretty solid. Looked like he knew what he was doing. Just strong macro. Hootie and TV, both strong performances. Some definitely moments where, getting caught out or it's like, why are they fighting this team somewhere else? So certain things looked a bit lost, but still really strong performances, really strong jungles. Morn, unfortunately, wasn't able to catch his game, so this one's kind of like a filler. I think 2 through 4 could have been switched around pretty easily, but just after not having seen his game, I saw the after games. He looked like he did decent. His team kind of just got gapped, it looked like. So I just put him kind of there as a respect thing, but I think 2 through 4 could have been switched around pretty easily this week. I think SK Evaps had a pretty strong showing this week. I particularly remember I think it was his Gwen game 3 kind of just like popped off, solo carried late game. I mean, that's what Gwen's do, but he definitely pulled it off. Soapin, I think he can definitely find his way back up once he finds his footing playing with Gumby, I believe is his team. But as of right now, he looks a bit lost. Looks a bit behind the curve. Like he's just not in sync with Gumby, and I think a lot more could be happening. But I certainly still have faith in him. I think Adolfo and Firestorm are probably like the next tier, maybe the Gator Ryan, but I think Adolfo Firestorm both look like very strong jungles. Not as good as performance this week as last week for Adolfo, but he's still a strong jungle. I think he's really strong ganks. Some late game macro might be a little sus, but I think he's a strong jungle still. Firestorm, another I think pretty impressive performance considering his team's like pretty dog water. I'm not gonna lie, but I think him and Barbecue, we can talk about that later. Are showing some promise, making plays around the map despite his whole team kind of imploding. So I think he's I think an underrated jungle, but I'm glad he's getting a little more respect now. It feels even weird putting him at eighth. I think in previous season he'd probably be like top five easily, maybe even top three, but the season's just stacked. So eighth's like by no means bad at all. I think it's still a strong jungle. Gator, Ryan, PvP is probably like the next tier, maybe down to Cookies. Just like not too high impact. Some good plays, some looks lost at times. Just like real middle of the pack showing from all four of them really. I know PP came out with the win, but had some decent scorelines and everything, but just really didn't seem like too much was happening. Kind of just never saw, and I think Sporadic on the team doing pretty well. Um, Cookies, I'm not gonna lie, kind of got gapped by TV, especially game one. He looks a little bit lost. But I think he has room to bounce back. And even despite him being at 12, I think like the jungle pool is still so strong. Like 12's as low as it is still like probably better than up to like four if like compared to top lane rankings. Slop only played one game this series or this week as well as wasn't able to catch it. He looked like he did fine, but that team like just size kind of just dominating on that team. I'm not gonna lie, so I don't think he's doing too much. And then I won't back down. Speaking of people that I don't think are gonna move around too much, I think he's probably stuck at 14th. I honestly don't see him. Definitely see him improving, and he did improve a lot since week one, but I don't see anyone dropping down to 14 this season. So looking forward to see if that how that shapes up.
Yeah, unless like he has like a crazy like 1v9 game and like Slop just sucks one week. That's like the only way I can kind of see him.
Yeah.
But
Gator 13 is crazy too, by the way. He had a pretty decent week, I think.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, but
listen, right now I'm a Gator hater, I guess, because I play him
yeah,
next
it's
week.
crazy. It's fair.
So,
That's crazy, bro.
but
Crazy,
He's
but
been
fair.
he's held back by Brissy absolutely nuking everyone's internet in that area.
That is true.
Oh, really? Well, anyways, let's move on to mid lane. Starting off my elite tier, Gumby Sai Never saw for me dropping it down to tier to the third. I honestly think Sai just had a really good week this week. The Hui and the Yon were just nasty this week, and even though Gumby technically lost his series, his talent game alone was terrifying.
Insane.
That it was so scary.
Insane.
I don't know if they did the research, but I don't know why they let him draft Talon. Um, and then
He's
never
already pulling
saw
5 bans all game,
right.
all game.
And then never saw. I mean, solid performance this week. Good comeback, I think, but I think Sai just had a way better performance this week. And yeah, moving down to my top tier: Array, Nico, Loco, and Odysseus. Some of the better mid laners. I don't think they beat anyone above. Like, I don't think they beat any of the top three. I think, in my opinion, I think these three are pretty much locked in, and then each week, they might interchangeable depending on like how their performances go that week. But Array, Nico, I thought Array's game was super good. I thought Array was a very big part of why they won. Nico, even though he's lost, he had some really solid performances in his series. And then Loco, my mid laner, honestly, I'm very surprised. Besides game one, I thought he played super good in game 2 and 3. Odysseus, I think it was just a bad week for him. I think he'll bounce back for sure. Then, like I said, a Nevia game, good. Everything else, we'll work on it. We'll work on it for sure. And then moving down to my mid-tier, Frost, Vossler, Hamea, and Flash. Good players, but have been struggled to win lanes and or play team fights effectively. And that just kind of depends on their champion. Yes, Vossler is this high because I actually think he's very good right now. I think he has a lot of micro decision making. I think, but his like CS numbers are up there in my opinion. Like his CS numbers are up there, and I think he's a solid player so far. And then my low tier World Soup, Mahat Daddy, and Naki. Yes, Naki is last because I'm very disappointed of how he's performing for the value he is put at. I think he is like he's a 7 pointer, and I think he should be doing more. And I just don't think he's been playing super well. And so that's why I put him last. It's kind of like it's not like I guess it's kind of a disrespect thing, but it's like I want you I'm driving you to play better sort of thing. It's like make me want to rank you higher sort of thing. So, yep, that's mine. Jason, let's hear it.
Yep. So looking at the top, I saw definitely prior to week one, it looked like the top three were certainly locked in that place. I think, and I even thought Gumby was going to be permanently locked in number one. But I think based on size performance so far, they definitely might be able to dethrone Gumby potentially. We'll definitely see in their head-to-head will show a lot. But I think mid lane's shaping up to be really interesting. And I said also because I think with Nico going back into the mid lane, he looks extremely strong in the mid lane. He was pretty much the primary factor there were in any of the games. He's really just like 1v9 mode pretty much. His team's like straight into him, and he played extremely well. I think Ray also had a really strong series, but I think Nico just even in the loss just showed he had to do a lot more. But that being said, I think with those two, Nico coming back and Ray stepping up, I think the lines between that top three and the next two, three are starting to get blurred a little bit. So I'm definitely interested to see how this season shapes up because I think Nico and Ray do have the room to potentially dethrone that top three. But that's kind of like the elite tier. I think Odysseus is kind of floating in his own realm right now, in my opinion, sitting in between like that elite status, but like definitely better than below like the higher tier, maybe middle tier mids. Not the strongest showing this week, but I think he still was pretty solid. Not definitely not as strong as week one, but I think a lot of potential in him, and looking to see him bounce back next week. Frost, pretty decent showing in the loss, I think against Array. Um, he seems to be not having the strongest lanes, but still managed to be fairly impactful these games. And I really the same goes from like Frost, I think all the way to Loco on my list, are probably like that middle tier where they have certain strengths but clear weaknesses. Like Hamaya's playing these lanes really well. He's like was gapping soup, but then out of lane he just started getting caught, looked a little confused. I think Loco actually had a pretty weak week this week. Well, that's a lot of weeks. He looked pretty weak this week. But still looks solid in the mid lane. I think at the lower end of like that middle tier. And yeah, I do agree. Naki is probably as far as like point value to performance would definitely probably be 14th rank here. But I think subjective performance still just lower end. Maybe he's probably at the lower end of that middle tier. And then if you look at that lower tier, be Vossler, Flashlight, Soup. All have their moments where they shine, but still overall pretty weak. Not too much impact. Foster's mouse arbs was really annoying, but I mean Gator and the bot lane played pretty decent that series, so it's hard to really tell. But I think the bottom three all had like decent performances, but nothing crazy. Um, Certainly not horrible, but
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. All right, Gar, hit me with it.
Alrighty. First off, I think our three elites are kind of sensed. I'll take that back. I don't think they're set in stone. I do think Gumby has shown that he is the number one mid laner, but Sai is certainly not far behind from that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we've seen performances for both of them. Both of them can carry very hard when they get the leads that they want to. And I personally just think Gumby has shown that he's able to get the leads a lot easier, but Sai is able to keep those leads for longer when they're ahead. As you've seen, Sai with the Hoi and the Yone, as you mentioned, uh, they absolutely like crushed MHD, and I don't think there was ever really a struggle for it. But Gumby was able to get his advantage on his Talon super early, and it just looked super powerful for him because he's on his main. Uh, Never saw it being third. Also, kind of makes sense. She's shown that she is still capable of the things she's been able to. She's shown to be really aggressive. But I don't think it's translated into a win as much as she would like. And I would like to see, I guess more control out of these aggressions so that we're able to, can actually translate those leads into wins. But I think overall those are like the top 3 strongest. We did see the return of Nico into the mid lane, and for a hot second, it was looking really good for him. I think him returning back to mid was a good move. I'm not sure it would be the best move for their team, but seeing the performances he was able to put on mid lane has been really hopeful for the team as they try to get some good footing. We also I want to shout out Array. Homie first times casted and absolutely kills it. Granted, they did draft 4 AP into
Yeah,
Blind
that's
Pit,
right.
or
It's crazy.
they blinded 4 AP champions, and Cassidy just looked super OP here, and lo and behold, it absolutely waffle stomped them. So I want to shout out Array just for like, from what his previous misconceptions are, he's shown that he can actually smurf the hell out of whatever mid lane champion he wants to pick up, especially. Hey, he is not the only Zoe player in Summit anymore. Pyrosis, you better be a little scared for your spot. We did put Odysseus into 6th compared to his earlier showing of 4th. The games this week have not been super good for his, showing how lane dominant he usually is. As you mentioned, the Anivia game was really good, but the Vladimir was certainly more wanting, especially into a Malzahar lane. And I know Jason pointed out in his stream, but like, homie did not reach 5-digit damage numbers. It was a little bad. But I think once we start to touch base on how we want to build our comps, he'll be able to perform a lot better. It was just really unlucky with how that matchup went, and we kind of just shoehorned him into CC mages. Loco, I think, is still doing really solid. We did originally see him as a top laner, but he has also shown that he's able to flex into different roles. And this series has shown to be no different. He's very comfortable with the mid lane. He just has to figure out how these mid matchups go, and I think he'll be potentially go up to 6th or 5th if he continues the pace that he's going at. Haumea, also really solid mid laner. Just a little unfortunate with how the games are going. Final Boss still seems to be struggling on how exactly to play around mid and late game to win the games. Frost is also a really interesting one. He's I think he was like a 16-point mid. I could be trolling. I might be trolling. He was a 13-point mid, but he was a top main initially.
Yeah.
So him beating up against people like, but it was Naki this game or Naki last game, and I think it was who was he playing against?
This week, Array.
Yeah, so he was smacking up pretty well. Excluding game 3, or no, excluding the Cassidy game because we don't want to talk about that one. I think Frost has been able to hold his own against these higher elo mid laners. But it isn't enough to translate into wins. But hopefully, as the season progresses, we might be able to see him get more comfortable with any of the autofill mid laners and play their hearts out. I put Flash of Night up here just because his champ pool is impactful enough to actually make a difference in these games, even though he himself may not be performing like out of his mind, like he's not smurfing compared to any of the mid laners here. Just being able to provide the engage that his team needs to finish up these fights has been super helpful for him. Naki, we've talked about it before, is underperforming compared to what his point value is. I don't think he's a bad mid laner at all, but it's definitely a little concerning to see him struggle to some of the lower elo mid laners we've seen so far. So hopefully he'll be able to get back on his groove and start carrying the games. And then we have the bottom 3, which is Vossler, World Soup, and I am struggling to talk right now. MHD. I do agree. I think Vossler has the potential to be a really good mid, but it's just he's getting I can't even think right now. It's just he doesn't have the potential to carry the games as much as people would expect him to do. Uh, we did see that his Malzahar did shut down Odysseus super hard, but there are bans for a reason, and outside of the Malzahar, he hasn't looked as oppressive as one might think. World Soup also just he's still playing his AoE mages. We got the Galio. I think we had a Nico. I'm not quite sure.
We had a Nico, but it
But
was really bad, and so he's kind of just been on Ari duty recently.
oh, that's rough. But I think World Soup hasn't been able to show his strengths compared to the last seasons, considering he's typically the like best budget mid laner you can get.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we'll be able to see a clap back from there. And I don't really have too much to comment about MHD because he kind of got slapped by Psy a little too hard.
Yeah.
So if we see him against another similarly ranked mid laner, I think we might be able to adjust it. But for now, I am putting you in last.
Rip at MHD. But yeah, let's move on to ADC. Jason, I got you first.
Yeah, that's cap.
Nah,
This
nah,
dude,
Jason,
this dude changed it. This dude's cap. This
Jason,
dude had me at 5
Jason,
before, by the way.
Jason
This
clears,
is full of
guys.
shit.
No, I had you second. I swear.
That you
I
had me
swear.
at 5th. Stop
I
lying.
swear. Listen,
We
Jason,
got it in the tapes, fellas. He changed it like 5 times.
Jason clears, guys. Jason fucking clears. I think he's better than any of these guys.
He's full of shit.
Full of shit. You got no faith in yourself?
No, you had me at. I'm saying what you're saying is foolish. You don't believe what you're saying.
No, I
Hey,
believe what I'm
anyone who
saying.
watches this video when it comes out, $5 PayPal. I show you the edit history.
Yeah, show that it is. Yeah.
Listen, all I'm saying, Jason, I think right now Jason is gonna be a dangerous bot laner. Azrael, who cares? Don't care. King Carol, who cares? Them, you should care about them. He's a scary guy. Everyone else, who cares, right? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm thinking. But legitly, yeah, I just have Jason clears for my elite tier. My top tier, Thim, Loon, Goblin, Pyrosis played well in their games. Thim played well in the Corki. Loon still getting to play the Jinx for some reason. Goblin had a pretty good showing, even though he did lose. PyPy, I'm gonna be honest. I think if he stays bot, he doesn't lose to anyone below him. That's why I put him 7th. But if he continues to kind of like improve in that role, I think he can definitely go to the 4th, 5th spot for sure, depending on how he plays in said week. So, my mid tier, I have Affection, Sporadic, Picrinus, and Sauce. Honestly, some solid plays this week by a couple of these guys. Affection had the Kaisa game where he went like 9-1 or something like that, but unfortunately still lost the game. His team was kind of trolling him. Picrinus, honestly, solid 2 games by him. Nothing like too flashy or anything like that. Sporadic, I think so. My problem with Sporadic is like I don't think he ever really gets to shine, unfortunately, just because of like Neversaw specifically. And then PPP had a pretty good showing, and then Bronzina had a solid week this week. So I don't think Sporadic has really had his moment to, I guess, shine yet as this ADC player that a lot of people know him as. So we'll see. And then Sauce, solid performance, nothing too crazy. This is the one I want to talk about. Strand, listen, man. The Caitlyn was not it. It was it last week, week 1. That Caitlyn was really good. This week, Caitlyn was not the way to go. He was behind in both games, and it kind of showed why Caitlyn needs a lead in order to play the game. So, and then Bird and Yuhuzi. And in my opinion, I think these bottom 2, Bird and Yuhuzi, are pretty much locked in for the rest of the season with how they're going to be playing. So, yeah, that's it. I'm gonna send it to Gar.
All right. I'll keep this one a lot shorter because I don't pay attention to ADCs that much. I do think Azrael, Ace, and Jason, King Caterwall are all really solid top 3 ADCs. I think all of them have the potential to change the outcome of the game based on what the advantages and disadvantages they have laid out for them. Uh, I do think it's crazy that X-Ray did put Asian Jason in number 1, but if it feeds the ego, it feeds the ego, and I'm happy for him. But I definitely think that these 3 need more time to actually play against each other to figure out what happens there. Well, actually, no, we can't play Azrael against Asian Jason, right?
Nope, not until playoffs.
Yeah, well, until then, I think Azrael is better than Jason here, but I do think all 3 of them are like top of the class here. I'll drop down to the next 4, Thim, Loyton, Goblin, and Pyrosis this time. I think all 4 of them are really solid carries, especially Thim. Thim was absolutely smurfing it in the last series that he played, and thanks to Sprinkler, he was able to get a huge advantage on his carries, especially that Kai'Sa. That Kai'Sa went crazy. Loyton, whether or not you think he's slept on or whether or not you think he's overrated, I think he's extremely solid ADC. And with how comfortable he's been throughout last season and this season, I think he's shown that like he can punch even if not much harder compared to the rest of the ADCs. Rob's still finding his footing with Final Boss right now, so I would like to wait for another week before we start settling on where he is in the placements. But I think with how he likes to macro on his team and just his overall decision making, I think he deserves to be at least top half. Pyrosis, I don't know if his first season playing ADC, he definitely had moments where he was really strong, but there's also a lot of times where he struggled to get a foothold on the ADC role. And it was just like a lot of high highs and a lot of low lows, and it was really difficult for me to put him anywhere, which is why I'm kind of dropping him in the middle of the pack at 7th. Sporadic of Affection, Sauce of Legends, I think all of them have their own moments to shine. I mentioned it in the chat way before, but Sauce of Legend likes to play the I'm going to silently scale throughout the game, and then there's going to be a one pop-off fight where I win. But depending on the tempo of the games, I'm not sure that sort of playstyle is going to work out at the end of the day. Sporadic definitely had a good showing here. I do agree that it's a little difficult to display that when you have Eevee and Bronzina absolutely killing it in the solo lanes. But he's still had a solid scoreline of 5-0 and 5 in game 1 and 6-1 and 8 in the game 2. Like, he has shown that he's a very strong ADC. Same goes with Affection, even though he did kind of get diffed by Thim in certain parts of the game, he's still shown that he's a really solid ADC.
He played Loon.
It's just really unfortunate with the... What's up?
He played Loon, not them.
I'm stupid. Holy crap. Ignore everything I just said. But Affection's just there because he's there and I love him. Then we have sort of like the bottom 3, bottom 4. We have Picronis, Strand, Bird Person, Yuhuzi. I do agree with the same thing. Like, I think Yuhuzi, it's definitely 14th. It is really awkward to be like a silver gold player autofilled from top to ADC. And it's really shown the awkwardness as he's tried to play out these games against people who have mained ADC for at least a season or 2. Same goes with Bird Person. I don't think Bird Person's bad by any means. It's just really difficult for him to actually try to carry these games compared to the rest of the ADCs in this pool. Strand had a pretty hard fallout compared to the first series. Back against Beware Gaming, he has shown he was a really strong carry, but now that he actually played against an ADC who's able to keep up with him, it's shown that it's a struggle for him to actually keep that lead as a Caitlyn player, and it wasn't able to translate into any wins against rookies and cream.
Yep.
Can't really say too much about Picronis, unfortunately. I didn't really pay attention to that, but That is my current rankings for ADC.
All right, Jason. Let's.
Well.
Why
I think
aren't you first?
I honestly think objectively, if you look at the week two performance, I think you could make a very strong argument. I actually not. I think I would be first if you look at just the week two performance. But I think just knowing what I know, and I think Astro objectively is just the better ADC right now. So it felt hard for me to justify putting me first despite the performance. But I'm sure you could. I don't think it's incorrect to put me first here for this week, but I would still say he's objectively the better ADC at this time. So
So then why
just
are
why I
you
put him
mad? I
first.
ranked you first.
No, it's the fact that you had me at fifth, and
I
then
didn't have you fifth. I
actually, literally,
didn't.
we can look at the review. Anyways, I think I'm sitting pretty at second right now. But I think there's still like there's a lot of strong ADCs this season. I think from Caterwall to probably Goblin are like the next like elite tier right now. I think all four of these are very strong ADCs. Probably fairly interchangeable at this point in time. Honestly, like Thim and Loon, I think had really strong performances. Goblin, his team's definitely struggling, but certainly shows to be a little bit of a beacon of light on the team. As soon as they maybe figure some things out, I think he'll look a lot better. But he's probably definitely at the bottom of the elite tier right now, I would say. But Caterwall through Luton, all very strong. Not particularly impressed with Caterwall, particularly the fact that he has the GM support and it just seems like they should be doing a little bit more. But I do think he's still a strong ADC. So I put him third, but I think 3 through 5 this week, you could make a strong argument to move them around. Goblin, I think sitting good there and like in between like the elite tier and like the strong tier, which would go from sporadic down to probably I don't know. Actually, it's when you start bleeding into like the lower tiers. But sporadic, I think, has had a pretty solid showing the last 2 weeks. But like we mentioned, it's hard to really shine on his team. He hasn't really had to do too much to carry, but he's definitely still looked strong even their week one loss. So it's hard to put him any lower. Pyrosis, I think, definitely looked to struggle a bit in the ADC. I think Pyrosis has been in his like feeder arc right now, but I think he has potential to definitely become stronger in the ADC, but it's you definitely can't really justify him putting any higher at this time. Maybe even lower, but I think right there is a good spot. And then we start getting to like the more lower tier players, but still solid ADCs. I think Affection, Sauce of Legend, Pickerness, and Bird Person, I think all four had pretty solid showings this week. I think most of them won or had really good score lines, but I think they're those the lower tiered ADCs that kind of ride on the coattails of their team success a little bit in the sense that if you really look at the games, look at the damage charts, how the game went, the impact, it's not too much, but they're definitely doing a bit of their part in the ADC realm and they're not doing poorly, but it's just not as much impact as you expect despite some of the score lines. But still all very strong lower tiered ADCs. Strand, we know he's a very strong ADC, but we saw what happens when he gets a bit shut down in focus this week. Him and Tubby looked completely invisible in their series. I still think he's very strong low tier, but definitely dropped a bit in the rankings, especially the crazy overcorrection from last week. Now that this week, it's crazy, but I think this is a pretty solid spot for him in the, amongst the lowers. They're all pretty strong, and I think, like I said, kind of with I think I will back down to the jungle. I think speaking of people that probably aren't going to move this season, I don't see Yahuzi ever breaking out of 14 this season. I think Bird Person actually looks solid amongst the lower tier, but I think Yahuzi is looking. Ooh, I think he's pretty stuck in the 14th this season.
It
Yeah.
just
He
sucks.
definitely had a better week. I
Yeah.
think he did have a bit of a better week, but it's still rough, and I think the gap is just too much there.
And that's just like the problem. It's like you're autofilled and you're playing a totally different role on your
Yeah,
team. So it
it's
definitely
tough.
sucks. So, but let's move on to our supports. Big Dummy.
Huge.
This is where my notes are non-existent. So I'm gonna
Yes.
just ad lib. So Big Dummy, Spirit Man, and BBQ Leona in my top tier. I think honestly BBQ Leona had a really good series this week, and like I said, I mean he is supporting Yahuzi, but the thing is like some a lot of the plays he made this week is he wasn't even in lane. He was playing those roam champs. The Pantheon game, I thought he played extremely well. The Maokai was pretty solid as well. Moving down to my like high tier, I have Litzvir, Illa, Enderfridge. I honestly think listen, Enderfridge, he's a good support. No one knows it yet. so that's why I have him here. Ilya, really good game. I think Ilya's definitely gonna be. I had them initially like in the lower tiers, but now that I've kind of seen their gameplay, I know this. They're gonna stay in the like top five, and then Litsphere, you know, he played okay into ST, but definitely not the strongest performance for sure. And then like my mid tier, I have Tubby, Alturas, Gamer D, Brissy, and I'm move Sloth up there as well. I was very impressed with the Bard game on Sloth this week, so I moved her up from last to 11th. So pretty solid. I like the Bard though. It was like 21 out of 25 KP in the Bard game, so very solid Bard. And then Tabiel Turris, even though they lost, it's more or less of like respect picks. Like I still think they're good supports. I just think they're still trying to find their footing, especially specifically Alturas. Um, Gamer D Brissy. Didn't play this week, so I just kind of put him here. And then Gamer D, he, even though he lost, I think he still played well. And then Bonigafo, KipKat, Sifra. I'm gonna be honest, Sifra, I don't really remember watching your series or anything you did, so that's why you're 14th. But yeah, that's all I got because I don't have notes because I'm a slacker. So don't worry, Jason doesn't have any notes, so he's just kind of ad
I do
libbing
have
too.
notes actually.
Uh
He
huh.
does have notes. I'm the one
Well,
who doesn't have notes this time compared to any other
I would
climb
say
I've been into.
I don't actually really have notes. Honestly, my notes aren't. My notes are like this person's greater than this person. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Okay. Let's have Jason start.
Oh, shit. Yeah, so I think support's definitely the hardest, I think, to get a good accurate ranking on, just because truthfully, it's I think a very unimpressive performance by pretty much all the supports the last 2 weeks. I don't think there's been any standout supports. Besides, obviously, I think Big Dummy. Speaking of players that probably aren't going to move, Big Dummy's probably like in that top five, where top five players that aren't going to move from first, or where they're at in the rankings. I don't see anyone dethroning Big Dummy. The only one who really seems to have the most impactful performances. I mean, naturally so. I mean, like his Thresh was just making some insane plays onto Gumby. Huge reason why they won. So showing he can still do in the support lane. So yeah, again, it's really hard to really rank and stack these. I think Ilia's probably looked like the most consistent support player. Just looks pretty strong. Lightspear definitely relative to his rank. I think pretty weak performances, but I think still an objectively strong support. And really just like the lack of competition, it's hard to put him any lower. I think Barbecue Leon had a pretty strong week. I mean, he has a super hard game being on like the worst team with a bronze or whatever he is ADC, but he still managed to make plays on the map, being impactful. So I think he pretty strong showing. And then the rest of these like Pony Goffo, Sifra, they just look solid, nothing crazy. I didn't see anything too stand out, anything too just look like solid supports. I think Tubby's had a really weak week. Weird saying. He looked pretty weak. Just getting focused and seeing his impact when they get focused down the bot lane and just couldn't really do too much. But again, it's kind of hard to put him too much lower. Gamer D, pretty solid showing against Big Dummy, but um, I mean, it's a lot of these like I think 5 through like 11 are pretty interchangeable, honestly. Brissy didn't play this week, but I think putting him here is pretty accurate based on week one and then everyone else's performance. I think Spirit Man. I don't know. Maybe you guys saw something I didn't this week, but I think week one was super unimpressive. Week two looked better, but not enough for me to justify jumping him up too much. So not horrible, but definitely. But again, like 5 through like 11 are pretty interchangeable, I'd say. Sloth looked like they had a decent showing. The Bard looked okay. Altruis, I mean, really, honestly, all the way probably down to 12 too. Altruis, um, pretty weak performances so far. I know a lot of people have a lot of potential and hope in him, but until we see it, he's not going to move up too much. Um, this is KitKat. I think, and then the bottom two right now, I think are pretty solid. KitKat and Enderfridge, in my opinion. They look like they're there. They make some plays, but they get caught out a lot. Don't really do too much. Kind of look like they're just following their team around. Not really making too many plays happen. So I think pretty weak role overall, and not too many impressive performances, but decent. Probably still better than previous seasons, but just pretty unimpressive overall.
Fair, fair. I still don't like Ender Fridge last. I think that's kind of
I
disrespectful.
swear every time I watched him on my screen, he was getting caught. So I don't know. It wasn't a horrible
Yeah.
performance, but
Fair enough. Fair enough.
yeah.
I understand the why you did it. So, Jason has just left. Oh, he's back.
Oh,
Welcome
my
back,
Discord
Jason.
just died. So my
Uh,
Discord's been dying a lot lately.
it's all good. Let's send it over to Gar.
Big Dummy 69, congratulations. You have the crown for support once again. I don't think anybody is taking that away from you. Uh, Now we kind of go into where the more competitive space is. I'd say top three at the moment are Spearman 11, Lightsphere, and Barbecue Leona. Uh, I do agree with Jason though. There has been very questionable moments between all three of those players that almost makes me not want to put them up here. Uh, I can certainly call out from
Well,
our game against Lightsphere.
here's the thing. For those three players, they're all on losing teams right now.
It doesn't matter.
I'm,
I don't mean shit. I
just
mean, Barbecue
saying.
still looked pretty good on his losing. Being
Yeah,
on
I
the worst
mean,
team,
yeah.
Barbecue
I
still
mean,
looked
Yeah,
pretty good.
he's playing with, you know, quote unquote number 14 ADC in the league, and he's still like doing really well. It's just unfortunate that he can't really show how to actually give his ADC his lead when said ADC isn't the greatest out there.
right.
But I do think there's some questionable plays between all three of them, but I also think compared to the rest of the supports here, they have really standout moments where like them making a specific play has led to a team getting a huge advantage for a fight. Uh, then I'd say we go down to like the middle of the pack right here. I put Ilya, Sifra, Pony Gaffo, and GamerD.
Mhm.
I think all four of them had some pretty good moments. I know we memed about it before, but Ilya had like a first two kills on Nautilus, and those two kills actually made a difference for a team fight later on where she just lives with like a sliver of health. I also think that Sifra is a lot better than what you may have think. X-Ray, I think they has a much more potential of actually carrying over leads to their ADC as well as roaming around the map, and it's really shown on like
The game wasn't streamed, man. I don't know.
I know. I just quickly took a look throughout the game, but like Sifra's
Uh,
scoreline looked really good for support. So, uh, going from there, we do have Brissy, Alterus, Tubby. They're a little below the main head of the pack, but I also think they do have really strong potential to make it out of there. As we said, Brissy wasn't here, but I do think once we get another game in with Brissy, those stocks will rise up. Alterus also is in the same position where it's just been really unfortunate that like Final Boss hasn't been able to figure out what they want to do with their team as of yet. But once Rob and Alterus start shining in the bot lane, I think they're going to be able to win a lot more games. I do have Tubby rated down here much lower compared to everyone else. And I know when this comes out, Tubby's probably going to be like, oh my God, Gar, I hate you. God, die. But uh, just looking at how the game went this time around, it's really hard to justify Tubby being a strong support at the moment.
mm.
We did get information a while back that Tubby was the one doing the drafts, but it just seems like he's kind of stuck in this hellhole of like playing these super enchanting supports and not actually being able to play the playmaker mages he's used to. And it just feels bad that he's not able to do what he wants to do and actually shine as a support that gets leads early.
Mm.
Uh, then I kind of have like the bottom of the pack. I don't think they're bad in any way. It's really hard to compare them to the rest of the supports. I kind of only have the mental image of Enderfridge being a Maokai driver, and the said Maokai kind of gets caught a little more often than I'd like. I'm not saying that he is bad at any means. I do think he has some really good nature's grasp coming out, and it zoned off the rest of the team during these fights. But I don't think it's as standout compared to someone like Pony Gaffa or Ilya. Sloth also really solid. Same sort of scenario though. Even though her scoreline was really good, I think she had like a 2-3 and 18 Seraphine game. I just don't think it's really something that I could say is like carry potential. And it was really interesting to see KibCat go into support. I don't think his thresh is bad by any means, but probably not as strong as what his top lane has shown before.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah,
Facts.
By the way, Enderfridge can play more than just Maokai, just so everyone knows.
it's
So,
just the mental
wait,
image in my head
I
right
know,
now, just
I know.
Maokai.
We're waiting to
that-
see
well,
it. Waiting to see it.
He did play it 3 games in a row, so it's hard not to have that image. So I totally
I mean,
get
he
it.
did fine, but
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
For sure. But got it cut out a lot of times. So,
yeah.
but let's move on to the team rankings. Starting off, Sprinklers, Tinklers. I mean, it should just be obvious now, guys. Best team in Summit. Like I'm just
Something like
telling you
that.
guys. So
Something like that.
I ran out of copium, so I'm so I'm just
We're still
huffing
pretty
the
high
air.
on it.
Yep. So, moving down, Power of Friendship. I don't know right now who can really beat this team at the moment, because they're
Sprinklers, Tinklers, who are first, maybe.
yeah. You know what, Jason? You're right, but we don't play them in our group, so we won't be able to see them until finals. So we'll see though.
Jason, we actually have to play them during the
Are they
season.
the cross map for us?
Yeah, but
Yeah, they are
even,
the cross map. We have to schedule at some point, but that's going to be a
Holy
fun
shit.
one.
uh,
Fuck.
yeah. And speaking of your guys' team, you guys are second or second slash third.
You
whatever
put
you
us
want to
third.
call it.
Mm.
So second, but like
Mm-hmm.
Sprinklers Tinklers is first, like, okay. If I didn't
Huh?
have to rank Sprinklers Tinklers first,
You don't have. Fun fact: you don't actually have to.
no, I do. That's how this works. That's how this works.
Okay.
So, anyways, Gar's first grade class, Jason. I mean, looking like a really strong ADC. Gar playing as an elite top laner. Adolfo and Odysseus looking really solid, and Brissy holding it down in the support lane. 1,000 Year Dynasty, Loon and Big Dummy playing really well together. SK Evaps, I mean, looking like a good jungler. And then VLN, Flash Knight, good supporting cast. World Soup Center at my number 5, and I just have the Owen and Hootie show, and then everyone else is the supporting cast. Elo Surfers, I know this team technically lost, but I definitely think they're gonna bounce back this upcoming week. So I'm expecting big things from them. Rookies and Cream, I was very impressed with how they played. I think the rookies are definitely shaping up, and Array is leading the charge. So I'm really excited to see what they will do in the next upcoming weeks. Excuse me. Gauntlet, never saw played well this week. That's why they're here. And Cena had a pop-off series as well. And then Wawa Warriors, and this is kind of where my notes kind of do, so I'm just going to kind of ad-lib and kind of figure out what they did. Kind of a rough series, though, for Wawa Warriors. I think, I definitely think they'll bounce back, but it's going to be... Morn and Azrael have to kind of figure out what they need to do to be able to, 2v8 series and such as that. Summit admins, a lot of people were ranking them really high. I mean, they're at 5th, and they dropped 5 spots. So, I definitely think if they can somehow recreate week 1 somehow, in their up and coming series, I definitely think they can definitely rise in the power rankings. But my prediction is it'll kind of be like week 2, and they'll kind of struggle to find wins. So I think this is probably a good spot. I actually think they'll probably go lower because going into my 11th team, McMammals, um, which a lot of people had, first in the preseason power rankings, and now they're 0-2. They only have 1 point. So I think if Nico stays mid, I think it's better for the team. But Pyrosis definitely needs to clean up his ADC for sure. But I definitely think this team can definitely play better for sure. And then Alan and the Chipmunks, I don't really see Alan and the Chipmunks. I see Krusty Trap 2.0. And then Final Boss, until they find something that works, like they get their back on their feet and find, get that engine roaring or going. I don't really, I don't think I can rank them any higher at this moment. So, and then Beware, it's pretty obvious why they're here. Yeah, that's all I got. But yeah, let's send it over to Gar.
Gargoomba.
All right. First of all, you don't have to put your team as
I do.
number one. You are not
Sure,
obligated
actually.
to do
I
that.
do, though.
Jason and I have not put either of us in
That is
first
true.
because we both know what's the truth. Power of Friendship is probably the powerhouse to beat at the moment. It has shown that David and Sai being able to carry the solo lanes out, and they also have a really solid bot lane themselves as well. They've never looks like they've lost. They never looked lost, and they always look like they've never had the opportunity to actually throw a game unless they actually turn off their monitors. Like, it is insane how like strong all of them are together. With that being said, I do think my team has a pretty good chance of beating them. Not saying it's going to be a blowout or anything, but I think we have a really good chance of beating them. Because contrary to personal beliefs, I think having a team that's like relatively average with one another has shown an advantage that at least two of our lanes are always going to be ahead of some other teams. And so long as the people who aren't as ahead still know how to macro on a map, we have a very good chance of just like winning matches, as we've seen in our first series and our second series. 1K Dynasty as well as Elo Surfers, both of them have shown to be really strong. The series that they played against each other was a really good showing of who's better than the other, but I also think it was just like two really strong teams playing against each other, kind of like, what happened between Gen G and T1 is just that 1K Year Dynasty happened to be T1 that time around. But I don't think they're bad in any of their rights. World Soup Center, it's being held up not only by Owen, but it's mostly Owen. However, I think the rest of the team has shown that they can carry their weight and like win out the games. It's just it isn't as good compared to what I believe from the top four we have. Sprinklers, even though I do think you guys are good, McMammals gave you guys a run for your money, and whether that or not that's because McMammals are doing better or not, it's not a great sign if you want to try to be a top 5 win,
Listen, I
team.
wasn't in the series. It looks a lot different, I think.
So you think it's an X-ray diff?
I think it's an X-ray diff because I would not be playing tanks against John Dye.
I don't know. Ganunu
like
was kind of
banned.
killing
Aurora was
it.
banned.
Ganunu was kind of killing it. Wawa Warriors, still kind of flip-floppy right now. Obviously, we're still waiting on how the Morn Azrael duo is able to actually win out these games. I do think so long as they can get another lane a lead, or at least not completely get blown out, they'll be able to have better chances. I completely skipped. Rookies and Kareem, you guys are doing much better than last week. Considering you guys also played against a harder team, at least rated some admins were a harder team. You guys completely blew them out, and in a not so close fashion either. So I think your rankings just like shot up to the roof, and judging by everyone else, I think they also agree. The Gauntlet's still trying to find their footing. Bronzina and Neversaw have been killing it, but there still have been instances where there's been a lot of unnecessary deaths for their team. And I feel like until they minimize that, other teams that are above them will be able to take advantage of it. So we'll see how that develops. McMammals, I think, had a much better showing compared to week one. The Pyrosis Nico lane swap is still probably in its prototype phase. I'm not sure which one is better as of yet, but I think the adaptability of Nico's pool being like a bunch of control mages is probably better for the way their team wants to play, but we'll see how that goes out as the weeks progress. Alan the Chipmunks, I wouldn't say they're like a Krusty Trap level of like not showing up the way they want to. I think they do have a good chance of bouncing back, but just with current issues of like how the solo lanes want to go, it just hasn't been the methodology they've wanted to play around so far. We've already said our piece about Final Boss. It's really heartbreaking to see that they're not winning as we all expect, and
Fuck 'em.
until they're able to find their footing there, I think there's just going to be really bad ratings. Jason says he's the first one. I also did not buy into the summon admins hype. I think it was just relatively overbloated with the way they played against Beware Gaming. And now that they actually played against a team who looks a lot more cohesive with each other, Summon Admins doesn't have the exact same, I guess, strengths that they used to have. And as we look at their lineup, they have McMammals coming up. They have 1K Dynasty coming up. They have Elo Surfers coming up, and then they have Allenson and Chipmunks. If they're not able to blow past Elo and Allen and the Chipmunks, I don't really see them rising up on the power rankings at all. And finally, Beware Gaming is Beware Gaming, still trying to figure out what the hell they want to do with their team, because right now it's really just Firestorm Boxer doing his hardest to lift that team up.
You got a Firestorm. I believe in you. All right,
Firestorm
Jason.
hype. Okay, looking at the teams, I think the top four I would say are pretty solid at this moment. I think Power Friendship is a clear number one. I think Psy seems like a very methodical, just will choke you out completely. No, not risky. Still obviously very dominating, but it seems like a different playstyle from say Neversaw and Gumby, which seem extremely more volatile. I think Psy with the team, especially if they are, I think they're all friends and know how to play each other. I think it seems like they have very little weaknesses. So I don't see this team falling from first too much, but I definitely would. The next three, I think, are all very close. I think our team's just very solid all around. We went a different approach where there's really no weak points to our team as well, without any hyper carry. So everyone's just a little bit above average at the minimum, I would say. Thousand Year Dynasty and Elo servers. I'm not gonna lie, even despite Thousand Year Dynasty winning, I actually almost still put Elo servers above them because I think if you ran the series immediately back, I think Elo servers would take it. I think it's one of those things like Gar said, where any given day it can go to either team. So I actually think Elo servers still might be a bit of a stronger team, but regardless, the next two are still very strong teams and well within the top four, I would say. Both look very strong. World Soup Center, Sprinklers, Tinkers, and Rick's Cream would be like in the next tier, in my opinion. I think all very strong. I can see World Soup Center once they get a little more figured out, jumping up a bit. I think the high elo jungle and solo queue laner combo is very strong. So that's why I think Rick's and Cream and World Soup Center have that. And once they get a little more figured out, like we saw even just with Rick's and Cream this week, Array and TV kind of just getting more in sync and just dominating like they should and just taking control of the map. I think they're looking pretty strong. Sprinklers, Tinklers, overall, everyone's just playing a little bit better than I think everyone expected. Sprinkler looks really strong in the jungle. Locust doing solid mid. Thim's honestly popping off with I think a lower elo support again. So pretty just strong performance overall in Sprinklers, Tinklers. Strong, higher middle of the pack end team. I would say.
I will say for Sprinklers Tinklers though, we actually haven't played a summit match as a full team yet. We've had subs both weeks.
Oh, your support missed week one, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's crazy. So, maybe they suck all together. I don't know. So yet to be determined.
It's the reverse Exodia.
I'm telling you, your sub did way better than you ever would do against that laner. That dude got gapped.
Ooh.
The other guy. But anyways, Wall Warriors. I didn't catch the series this game, but I just know from experience having your top two elos, jungle and ADC, being like the least synergist roles. I might have made that up. Um, least synergy between the two roles in those. So I think those are kind of hard to pull off typically, but they still seem pretty strong just by how good. I think they potentially have the best jungle and ADC. So seeing how much they can gap individually, I think they have potential to look pretty strong. And again, they lost to what I would say is the top easy number one team. So still look decent. The next tier I think would go from Gauntlet to maybe Allen, maybe Bleed in the final boss. Look solid. They have definitely carry potential on them. They just look a bit lost one way or another. Um, the Gauntlet they put off the win this week, but still looked a bit shaky against the bottom rank team. McMammals, I think the Nico switch is, I think, really good so far. Nico looks very comfortable in the mid lane. He looked extremely strong. I think the way they placed his playstyle matches having a really low elo support as well. So they look pretty good. I think as soon as if Pyros can figure out in the ADC and become a little bit more proficient in ADC, I think, and as well as their top laner also looks really weak right now. I think if the rest of Nico's team just needs to improve a bit, I think this team will go crazy. I think Nico's looking really good in the mid lane. Allen Chipmunks definitely looked a bit better this week than last week. They got kind of stomped last week, but this week definitely put up a much better fight. They look solid. Another, it's hard again with your jungle ADC being like your two of your top tiers. I know support's super high low as well. I think their bot kind of needs to figure out a bit more. I think they should be gapping some of these bot lanes a bit more. Um, they just look like a lower end, middle of the pack team. Final boss, another one that I personally thought they would come out a lot stronger, but I guess looking at it, they do look a bit outclassed, I guess, in all the roles. They definitely seem like a team that it's again, they're another team that's more well-rounded, so it's really on the impacts of every single individual player needs to kind of perform to a level, and I think they're all kind of underperforming a bit, maybe besides Rob, but yeah, I think once they figure out their footing, I think they could definitely be a contender, but right now they're looking a bit lost. It's hard to put them really any higher. Them and Summit admins also look a bit shaky. Summit admins, it's them and Viewer Gaming. It's just looking at them, it seems kind of hard to really judge how these teams can really win. Like who's carrying on these teams, or like because as each player individually, they're not overall better than the opponents where they can just win as a team, and it also doesn't look like they have a carry either. So I find it hard to see how these two teams will beat the higher tier teams. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities, but at this moment, it definitely seems like they're a bit behind the curve, and I would like to see. I think they can improve, but I think they're pretty well at the bottom here. Pretty much what I said with B-Word Gaming. There's some admins, same thing, but at least B-Word Gaming's like jungle support being your top two. They're definitely making a lot of plays around the map, making things happen. But then it's like, okay, but there's not a single lane that can capitalize on that or really carry that forward later into the game because those two roles really aren't going to carry too much late game like that. And so we saw that really against Neversaw's team. And so I'm just not sure how these teams are supposed to win really, but I think it might be possible for an upset, but I think the bottom two are looking pretty comfortable with the bottom two right now.
All right, fair. And with that, that is going to wrap up Power Rankings for week 2. Thank you, Gar and Jason, for accompanying me. Jason, the real homie, for streaming all the games. Most of the games.
About to be the new content king.
Well, I won't go that far.
Let the viewers decide. Just saying.
Okay, you know what? Fair enough. We'll let the viewers decide. And Gar,
My TCG.
thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
This was the GFC episode, by the way, if anyone was wondering. So, represent. But yeah, that will wrap up this episode of Power Rankings. We will catch you all next week for week 3 Power Rankings. Stay tuned. And yeah, catch you later.
Give me $10 and I'll show you where X-Ray put Gamer D.
Sub up.